Okay, in this lesson we're going to cover some additional and basic information you need to know about Coreldraw. First thing is that you can't save the file if you haven't made any changes. It won't let you do that. So let's say we make a change here. We select this file. We select this object right here, which you notice a group of objects. Down here it says there's 9 objects in this group. So there's a rectangle, 2, 3 rectangles, 3 of these, which is 6, and there's 3 phrases: leading edge, south face, leading edge, north face. So there's 9 objects that have been grouped. Now if we want to nudge something, we simply use the arrow keys down here on your keyboard to nudge it left or right. And how far it's going to nudge it is shown up here. Now it's not shown when it's selected. Okay, let me just demonstrate. I'll nudge with the right arrow key. Notice it moved right to the center of that next coil group. I'm going to move it back where it was. So that's how you nudge something. You can nudge it up or down. And once we deselect that, you'll see up here, here's your nudging. It nudges 0.55 inches up. And we can also nudge it. If we duplicate something, that's what these duplicates show. It's a second copy of it. It goes horizontally 0.55 inches and it goes vertically 0 inches. So let's take something here. Let's take this word, or this phrase. That's all grouped. We'll take this thing here and how do you duplicate something? Well, to duplicate it, right here, Control D lets you duplicate it. Or you can come down and use this menu. So I always hit Control D. Now there's a copy. Maybe. It doesn't look like it to me. Just got to get rid of that menu first. Control D makes a copy. Notice it moved 0.55 inches to the right and 0 up and down. Now I can use my arrow keys to move this thing around. So that's how you duplicate something. Control D duplicates, and it uses the offsets that are shown here. If you don't like those offsets, you can change them right here, but I prefer to go up here under Tools, Options. Right here I can change under General. I can change the duplicate, placement, and nudge. So the duplicate placement is right here, and the nudge, you got a nudge and a super nudge. I don't know what super nudge is. I suspect it's Control with an arrow, but I don't know. You can experiment on your own to find that out. I never use that feature. I just repeat the normal nudge over and over just by holding the arrow key. Anyway, that's how you would change something like that. So we have this duplicate now that we made, and I'm just going to delete it because I don't need it. But what we've done, we've made changes to this program. Now if we do to this file, I should say. So if I click File, notice Save is not grayed out anymore. But let's say you forget to save the change and you exit the program. So when I exit the program, it says Save Changes to this Stator Winding Map 7 CDR. Stator Winding Map 7 CDR. It's warning you that you didn't save the thing, so you never better take the time now to say Save it. So we'll say yes, we do want to save it. And then it exits. So Coreldraw is always looking out for your best interests in that way. So restart it again. Reload chart 6 for a minute. It's got some interesting things going on. So if we select something, let's say we select this particular line here. It's actually a line turned into a curve by using this tool up here. We talked about it earlier. I can take a straight line. If I select this tool, notice I get these little squares. See these little squares right here? You can add more squares. Just double click on a spot and let you add a new node point, which is what they call it. Or not, or don't do that. You can also modify this node point, which is what I've done. See, we can actually change the shape of that curve. It's like having a French curve graph thing with you. You can modify these lines into French curve shapes. That's what I've done with this particular product. If you want to undo something you did, you can undo the curve edit. And if we edit again, we can undo the other curve edit. So we've undone those last two things we did. You can keep backing up with undos to previous things you've done. So that's how you use the edit undo feature. Control Z, I've never used that, but that's a shortcut. We talked about Control D, duplicating something. You can also copy and paste things. And this comes in handy if you ever start working with the layers. So let's just take this object down here, go to our selection tool, select this object right here. And right here we can cut it. A lot of times it doesn't want to show you that. I'm not sure why. I think that's something to do with Windows 10. But if I cut it, you notice it's gone now. It disappeared. I can edit, undo that, delete. I can also put it on the clipboard. Now it's on the clipboard. So I can go ahead and paste it back into the same drawing, or I could paste it into another drawing that you brought in, or I could paste it into a different layer if you have multiple layers. So the paste is this one here. Notice now it looks like there's one down, but if you take the arrows, you move, there's actually two boxes there. So I did in fact copy and pasted that shape into this same layer because I didn't change layers yet. So I'm going to delete that copied element. See, the printer's pretty obvious. It brings up your print screen, which we saw yesterday, in the previous lesson, I should say. And save files. I don't like doing that. I'd rather go up here and see what's going on, see if it's highlighted or not. This toolbar here, this is based on what you're doing at the time. So if I draw a line, notice I can modify the line up here. I can do the same things we did when we showed you that box yesterday. When we did this, we came down here and we brought up this little window here. We can do the same thing up here on whatever's selected. This one you can do it on multiple things by applying it to various things. So that's the difference between doing it up here on this tool control line or doing it over here in a drop down box. So if I select something else, notice that this line changes. Now we're in the zoom mode. We can zoom in, we can zoom out. Zoom out. We can select the part you want to zoom in on. Let's zoom in right here in this section. And so we got absolute detail. We want to move stuff around. We get very accurate positioning. And once again, if you use some other tool while you're here, then if you want to zoom out, you need to go back to the zoom tool before you zoom out so that you come back where you started from. There's other zoom options which I've mentioned in the previous lesson. Okay, we covered the important things here in this lesson so far. The nudge, the duplicate, zoom in, zoom out, and how to edit, undo things you didn't mean to do, you did them by mistake. You can undo, or you can also repeat the last action. Whatever the last action was, it repeats. So if you do Control D, and the Control D, if you remember, does a certain offset. Does a certain offset right here. Then you can repeat that if you want something to do the same offset. Let me show you an example of that. Let's go back here. See, that time something changed my zoom. Now it's all screwed up. So let's go through that. These bars at the bottom, it's a horizontal bar. It doesn't show it while you're moving it. It only shows when you let up on the move. Same with vertical. You can move it up and down here. So that's kind of wanky. That's because it's a 1980s program, 1990s, I guess. So it has to do it before you can see the results. If I want to move something, let's say I want to move this word right here, this phrase. I can use my arrow keys to move it. I can take the mouse pointer and move it. You can move it wherever you want to. So all that was one move. So I can go up here, I can edit, undo that move. So that was the last place I moved it. Edit again, undo the move, puts it next place. And you see I'm backing up to all the moves I made on that particular device. So at least one more. Yep, at least one more. This is when I was using the arrow keys. So now it's back where it started from. If you notice, the undo move isn't there anymore. It's the previous thing we deleted. So we're done with all the moves. We moved it back where it belongs. Okay, let's talk about some constraints for a moment. Let's say I want to draw a line right here. So I click to start it. I click to end it, but I want it perfectly horizontal. I don't want it off. Well, I want it perfectly horizontal. If you hold the control key while you're in the act of moving the second point, it will force you within limits. Right now it's set for 15-degree limits, I believe. Let's see, let's go look at that. At any rate, it constrains it to the limits that are predefined. So now if I click the second point, now the line is perfectly horizontal. This is very useful. Let's see if I can find where that's done. It's under Tools, Options. I get Constraint Angles. It's set for 15 degrees. So when it's constrained, it can only move in 15-degree rotation points. But it's really handy if you want to keep things horizontal, keep things vertical. So that's a very common use. Control on the second click to set the line, constrains the line. That's extremely useful. Okay, we talked earlier about doing duplications. Let's do that for a second. Let's take this line right here, which is selected. We're going to Control D, go to duplicate it. Notice there was no, that's a bad example because there's no vertical offset. Let's change our vertical offset. One thing I don't like, when it shows you the line tool, you can't see the offset. I'm going to click off of that. The offset, let's make the offset go up 0.1 inches. I'll delete this last thing I did. So now I'm going to go back and reselect the tool. I'm going to do a Control D, which duplicates it in the manner I want it to by setting those offsets. And now if I go up here and use the tool, let's see. Repeat duplicate. It drops, you have to redo it each time. Control R. So I hit Control R, which means repeat. So that's how you repeat something. Now let's talk about selecting objects. If I select something, the thing has to be totally included in the selection box. So if I select like this, notice they call a line a curve. There's only one curve selected because the box doesn't include the edge of the second one. Let me redo that, make it more obvious. Okay, right there's the other thing I want to show you. If you, I put this rectangle around the drawing so I can see where my limits are. And if you miss selecting on something, it's going to select what's behind this area. And what's behind this area is this box that I drew. So I'm going to go up here and edit. I'm going to undo that move of that box. So instead, I want to click outside of the box. Anytime you click inside the box, you're selecting the darn box. There's no getting around it. So if I want to pick up something, I can go right here. I can go up and across. And now I didn't select the box because I started outside of it. And I've only selected one thing, this bottom line. So hit the delete key, it's deleted. Notice it didn't delete the other 4 because they weren't totally encased within the box. So I'll do it again. Here I'll select the bottom 3. So you have to include everything, every part of any line drawing that you want to get rid of. So for example, if I start out here, nothing's been included completely, so I can't delete anything. So that's another one of the common rules to deal with. That's how you can eliminate things you don't want to do. Let's say I only want to select these 3 numbers. So I come from the bottom. Like I say, if I click in here, I've just selected the stupid rectangle. You can delete that rectangle and bring it back later. I've already been taking the action of clicking on it and drag it over to the left side of the page. Let's do that for a second. If I use the control key, it'll stay vertically aligned where it was. So I've lost that. Let's go back to our page for a moment. Page setup. Show page border. So now we have the page border. I don't need this box, so I can get rid of it. I'll just leave it there for right now. Anyway, now I can, if I want to select just these 3 numbers here, I can actually do that. I can come up here and I can select those 3 numbers. It doesn't matter if I get careless. I can do this because I didn't include all of these lines, so I still only have 3 objects selected. You have to include everything that you want to select, all parts of any particular elements you want to select. That's how you select those 3 numbers out of that page. So I'm going to click away, unselect. So I think we've covered enough in this lesson today. Always save things before you exit.